In 1922, right in the heart of Tokyo, Japan, a scrappy kid barely old enough to drive walks into a tiny auto repair shop. The clothes on his back have seen better days, but his eyes, they are sparkling with curiosity and a wild obsession with everything that moves, roars and rolls on wheels. This, my friend, was no ordinary kid. This was Soichiro Honda, the future kingpin of the massive vehicle brand we all know and love, Honda. To the people in that shop, he was just another kid, so they gave him the most kid-like jobs, sweeping up the shop, babysitting the boss's kid, you know the drill. Little did they know, they had a future automotive tycoon under their nose. Fast forward a few decades, and our little shop boy Soichiro is playing in the big leagues. He is rubbing shoulders with the giants of the car industry, and get this, he's owning the world's largest motorbike manufacturer. But let's not get it twisted. It wasn't all roses and rainbows for Soichiro. He had his fair share of struggles and bumps on the road. In today's video, we're taking you through Soichiro's incredible journey from dusty shop floors to the glitzy boardrooms of Honda Motors. You're about to see how one poor kid from Japan ended up building a multi-billion-dollar brand. Now let's rewind back to the very beginning. Soichiro Honda was born on November 17, 1906 in a modest village in Japan to Jihei Honda and Mika Honda. Jihei was a blacksmith who also ran a bicycle repair business, and Mika was a hard-working weaver. Together they had a large family, and healthcare was far from what it is today. His parents Jihei and Mika had several children, but heartbreakingly, many of Soichiro's siblings didn't make it past infancy. The causes varied: illness, poor health, the harsh reality of life in rural Japan at the time. All of these played a part in their untimely passing. Through it all, Soichiro was a survivor. He was the one who managed to pull through despite the odds. It was almost as if destiny had chosen him for something bigger. He was the one who was meant to grow up, to carry the Honda name forward. And boy did he just do that. That boy who survived when others couldn't went on to become a man who changed the world of automobiles forever. He wasn't just destined to live, he was destined to make a difference, to create, to innovate. And the world of vehicles as we know it today would be vastly different if it weren't for that scrappy, determined survivor from a small village in Japan, Soichiro Honda. Now here's where the story takes a twist. When Soichiro was a young boy, he saw a Ford Model T for the first time, and it was love at first sight. The roar of the engine, the sleek design, it was all too much. So he ditched the textbooks and started helping out at his dad's cycle shop. One fine day, he spotted an ad. Some company called Shokai over in Tokyo was looking for mechanics. Now, this was a big deal for the young Soichiro. Shokai wasn't just some random shop. They were the real deal, fixing and maintaining vehicles. This was his golden ticket to learn more about the world of vehicles. So, he packed his bag and said goodbye to his village, heading straight for Tokyo. But when he got to Tokyo, things didn't go exactly as planned. He was a bit too green, a bit too young, so they didn't hire him as a mechanic. But they did offer him an internship. It wasn't the best deal, but Soichiro, he saw the silver lining. He knew he could learn, even as an intern. So instead of heading back home, he rolled up his sleeves and got to work. And that was just the beginning of his wild ride. And you know what? Interning wasn't exactly a bed of roses for Soichiro. He wasn't getting paid and was stuck with all the grunt work. But our guy Soichiro, he didn't let any of that get him down. All he cared about was learning and honing his skills with motor machines. And you know what? His positive attitude paid off big time. He got so good that he was soon lending a hand to the senior mechanics and even to the top engineers at the shop. He was dishing out tips and tricks, crafting clever tools and making everyone's life a whole lot easier. Before long, people were noticing him and gave him the respect he deserved. Even the bossman took notice of Soichiro's chops and started teaching him the ropes of the business. Soichiro soaked up all that knowledge like a sponge, and before you knew it, he was a whiz at business too. Next, the boss was so impressed that he made Soichiro a born manager. Imagine that. At just 22, Soichiro was running the show and making a name for himself. But even after all this success, Soichiro wasn't ready to settle. He had this burning desire to create something on his own. So he decided to manufacture piston wings, a key part of any vehicle. But the company wasn't keen on his idea. So he made a bold move. He gave up his cushy manager gig to chase his dream. To make piston wings, you gotta know your stuff. So Soichiro hid the books at night, then tried his hand at making piston wings during the day. He poured blood, sweat and tears into making this happen. He even sold his wife jewelry and spent countless nights alone in his workshop. When he finally had his piston wing, he took it to Toyota, but they turned him down. They said he just didn't cut it with the high standards. Honda, being the stubborn guy he was, didn't let this get him down. He got himself into a technical school with one goal in mind: to figure out why his piston wing wasn't up to snuff. After 2 years of tinkering and tweaking, he finally had a piston wing that met Toyota's standards. They offered him a contract, but there was one hitch. He needed a factory to churn out those piston wings. The timing was a bit dicey, with Japan prepping for war against the US. Just when everything seemed peachy, the war in China kicked off. Most of his workers were off to fight, leaving mostly women behind at the company. But these women didn't know the manufacturing process. So what did Honda do? He adapted. He simplified everything and made it so easy that anyone could do it. And that is how you can keep the dream alive. But that wasn't the end of his struggles, as just when Honda thought he was back on track, another disaster struck. Warplanes were dropping bombs all over China, and one of those bombs turned his company into rubbles. His investment, his hard work, everything was gone in a flash. They have destroyed everything, but there's one thing they couldn't destroy, and that's Honda's spirit. He was down, but definitely not out. He knew that US Air Force pilots would ditch their used gasoline cans, so he gathered them all up and used the steel to patch up his factory. He jokingly called them little gifts from President Truman. Unfortunately, for the second time, just when he thought his luck was turning around, a massive earthquake hit Japan in 1945, wiping out the Honda manufacturing plants. Everything was destroyed, and he was officially out of business. Honda sold his manufacturing process to Toyota, thinking that was the end of the road for his company. Right after the war, Japan was going through a serious gas shortage. It was so bad that people only could get around by train or bike. Honda, who was a well-wisher for his country, couldn't stand to see it struggling. So, he got this bright idea to slap a small motor onto his bicycle. He started cruising around town on his new motorized bicycle, and soon enough, his pals were begging for a ride. Before he knew it, people were lining up to get their hands on his invention. It seemed like Honda was back in the game. Using his unwavering belief and sheer grit, Honda picked himself up and started all over again. This time he founded his own company, which he named, you guessed it, Honda Motors. He decided to chase the dream he'd had for the longest time, making motorcycles. Honda was a sucker for speed and bikes, so it was a match made in heaven. At first, he was pretty strapped for cash, so he started small, cobbling together bikes that were pretty much just bicycles with engines. But there was a hiccup. The country was in shambles, and Honda needed some serious dough to produce these new scooters. The investment was pretty much a pipe dream at that time. But as always, Honda found a way around it. You're not gonna believe this, but he actually wrote heartfelt letters to 18,000 bike shop owners asking for their support and investment in his new invention. I kid you not, he wrote 18,000 letters by hand. Email and the internet weren't even a thing yet, but when you want something badly enough, you'll move heaven and earth to make it happen. 3,000 bike shop owners got back to him. He teamed up with them, showing them how his invention could boost their bike sales. Needless to say, he managed to scrap together more than enough cash to start producing his scooters. People loved his bikes, and before he knew it, he was turning a profit. With that dot, started building more advanced bikes like the Dream D. Fast forward a bit, and Honda's bike were winning races left, right and center. His bikes were a hit worldwide, and he became the biggest motorcycle manufacturer around. But Honda wasn't done yet. He set his sight on 4 wheels next. The Department of Trade wasn't too keen on Honda's new venture. They thought the car market was already crowded with successful businesses. But Honda didn't let that stop him. He listened to his gut, not the naysayers, and got to work on his car prototype. He ended up creating a model that was so sturdy and efficient that even the department had to give him props. Honda proved everyone wrong and carved out a place for himself in the car market. It was a time when the bigwigs at the Ministry of Trade and Industry were trying to merge several smaller companies into a third big one to go toe-to-toe with giants like Toyota and Nissan. The Ministry of Trade and Industry, along with the Department of Transportation, tried to dissuade Honda from adding another company to the mix, but he was having none of it. He managed to get Mitty's blessing by rolling out a budget-friendly little sports car, the S500, which was nothing like what the other companies were making. He followed it up with more sports models. His company was still pretty small, making only about 2,000 cars in 1966. That's half of what Toyota was cranking out in a week. In 1972, Honda launched the Civic in the American market. This baby could get 39 miles to the gallon on the highway and 27 in the city, which was pretty impressive for a car back then. The Civic started gaining popularity throughout the 70s, and by 1980, Honda was selling 375,000 cars in the American market. That's almost 3 times as many as Subaru and double Mazda's sales. Although still trailing behind Toyota and Nissan, the reason for this success were pretty straightforward. Honda was making high quality, efficient and economical cars, but the small cars were still only catching the eye of a niche market. In the late 70s and early 80s, Honda started to spread his wing and expand his car company overseas. In 1979, he opened a motorcycle plant near Columbus, Ohio. This move got other Japanese companies to follow suit. At that time, Toyota and Nissan were selling about 1/3 of their cars to the United States, while Honda was selling half of his in that market. After that, Soichiro Honda didn't directly oversee the launches or the setting up of overseas plants in the United States and Europe. He even stepped down in 1973, but hung around the company as the supreme advisor. In 1988, he made history by becoming the first Japanese car maker to be inducted in the Automobile Hall of Fame. Soichiro Honda, the man who had revolutionized the automobile industry with his relentless determination and innovative spirit, sadly passed away from liver failure on August 5, 1991, in a Tokyo hospital. But let's not forget, his legacy is far from over. His name continues to zip around on roads across the globe, representing the spirit of innovation, resilience, and the pursuit of dreams. Even today, the company he built from the ground up remains a testament to his vision. Honda cars and motorcycles are still admired for their quality and performance. In the end, the story of Soichiro Honda serves as an inspiring reminder that even the most challenging obstacles can be overcome with determination, creativity, and a never-give-up attitude. One thing that set up Honda apart was his unique qualities. He had this knack doing things that others couldn't, and that was the secret sauce behind his and his company's success. His company Honda didn't stop at bikes and cars. His company also makes marine engines, watercraft, generators, garden equipment, and even aerospace parts. All of Honda's triumph can be traced back to one man, Soichiro Honda, and his never-give-up spirit.